This episode is about minutes 96 through 100 of The Rise of Skywalker with new guest Catherine Kneen. Hello there and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, feel free to call me Xanthi, and today is all about minutes 96 through 100 of The Rise of Skywalker. In this excerpt of the film, Artoo restores Threepio's memory and receives a transmission from Luke's X-Wing, Red 5. Finn and Poe give an inspirational speech to the Resistance fighters who get ready and take off to face the Final Order, and Rey lands on Exegol. I'm really excited to have one of my Australia friends on the show for the first time, Catherine Kneen. We've talked about Star Wars off the record, but now you're finally on my show. Hello.
Hello everyone. Yes, very excited to be here. I hope I can bring something to the table. I made Xanthi go to a very daggy podcast recording.
It was fun.
Of a podcast that has only gone onto Patreon now, but it covered compilation CDs of the 90s. So we went to a live recording of that.
Yeah. What were those compilation CDs? Because here in the US, they were called Now That's What I Call Music.
Yeah, that there were a few here. That one was 100% hits.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun show. They did covers of the songs from one of those albums, and I definitely recognized a few of them. Some of them I think didn't become hits in the US.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we had the was it Whoop, There It Is.
I think
Whoop,
so.
There It Is. And the crowd could not help themselves. So in this, basement pub in the middle of the afternoon, the whole crowd singing, Whoop, There It Is.
It's always nice when I go to Melbourne and I feel like I have friends. Everyone that I know in Melbourne is a Star Wars friend, pretty much, other than my family. But yeah. And then I get to go to podcast recordings for non-Star Wars things too. Anyway, The Rise of Skywalker, we have this is one of those sets of minutes where a lot is set up. Like we get the beginning of the thing that's about to happen, like Rey landing on Exegol, the inspirational speech, and then we have the montage with the Resistance getting ready to go fight. And it's sort of like, I don't know, maybe this is the beginning of Act 3, perhaps. I feel like it might be, because Rey has just lifted the X-Wing, Luke has just lifted the X-Wing. So now it's just like we're entering the final stages of the film.
Yeah, there was a lot happening. Yeah. Just a lot of things.
Yeah, there are tons of things. And actually for the first minute of this set of minutes, there is no music. I will play a little bit of it, and then we can talk about what happens in it, even though there's no music. There's still sound effects and everything. But then we can talk about what we think holding off on the music does for the scene. Okay, here we go.
Oh, hello. I am C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations. And you are? What? Well, I'm quite certain I would remember if I had a best friend. You want to put what in my head?
I mean, it's kind of sweet that Artoo says he's his best friend.
Memory restoration complete.
And just like that, his memory's restored. What do you think?
Just like that. Like that. It was so funny coming in with that one long note at the end of the last scene with Rey, and then straight into Artoo chirping.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to get quite a lot of Artoo chirping, actually.
Do you like Artoo?
Oh, I love Artoo.
Oh, yeah.
He's the best. No one can beat Artoo.
Okay, so that answers my second question, which is Artoo or Threepio? Who's your favorite? Which one do you like better? So I think it's Artoo.
Artoo.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm Team Threepio. But Yeah, it is funny that like the tail end of the scene right before, which is like this emotional, like profound moment, like the X-Wing has just been raised. It's like this very a stirring moment. And as often is in Star Wars movies, after that we get like some droid stuff as like a palate cleanser as to like help us transition to the next thing. I find that the droids, I've been noticing throughout this movie that like the droids often like break the tension or kind of bring us back from an emotional moment.
Yeah, and I suppose they have in a way done that throughout all of the movies. That in A New Hope especially, the droids sort of carried the story through. Mm-hmm. It was them carrying the plans forward, and it was them who really carried the story forward. And they're using the rest of the trilogy, ninology, whatever you call it, is that almost breaking the tension. But sort of reflecting on it, I'm a bit surprised there wasn't a wipe or something to go from the end of that incredibly emotional scene to a more light-hearted scene.
Yeah, interesting. At first I thought you were going to say you're surprised that there wasn't a wipe after like the memory wipe. Okay. But I didn't actually think about that. That is kind of interesting. We just jump right in.
Yeah, which I think describes Rise of Skywalker, just jump right in.
Yes. Yes, actually, like there's another interesting editing moment, I think, in this set of minutes, like later on too. So we can talk about that, like the whole montage thing with the resistance speech. Yeah. But yeah, jump right in is that's a very apt description for this movie, for sure. Okay, so I'll keep on playing.
Artoo, have you heard? I am going with Mistress Ray on her very first mission. I already have. Picking up a signal from whom?
Oh, it's a satisfying sound.
All the information you need for an airstrike on Exegol.
The sound design's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
No other movie really comes close. Well, now they try to. Now they know what the standard is. But yeah, the Star Wars sounds are just so real life and tangible and clunky. I love like the press of the buttons and all of that realness.
Yeah, like I know that you mean clunky, parentheses, positive. Good thing.
Good chunky button pushes. Is there anything more satisfying?
Oh, honestly, no. And I love when this topic comes up because it just like their intention, it feels just really natural to hear those sounds, but obviously they're like having to put every single one in. So like all those satisfying clicks and chunky button pushes or whatever you said, like, it's like adding an extra tactile dimension to something that, imagine if it were just all like completely digital and it's just all on a touchscreen and we couldn't hear anything. We just that wouldn't make for a very good like movie scene probably. But always appreciate all those mechanical sounds and the variety of them because we have like all different pitches and we have like all different lengths of sound. I mean, I feel like there could be, I don't know, it's like a piece of music made just from sampled Star Wars sounds that would be quite satisfying. Now I kind of want to do that. Yes. Anyone at Lucasfilm, if you want to provide me with all your sound effect libraries, I would be willing to accept that gift.
I want that.
I want that.
And all the little chirps, like it's amazing how much personality they put into Artoo and other droids with just sound effects and whistles. It's astonishing really how they did it. And because Artoo, he has very little movement and you can say, okay, sometimes head swivel, you can read things into it, but his personality really comes from chirps. and whistles. And
and is like
somehow
beeps.
it's nailed.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point because Artoo doesn't have a face or, one that we recognize as a face and get emotion from it. He really does physically have less to work with. So the sound is really paramount.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, we get like a sarcasm or cockiness and all of that from him. Mm-hmm. And even when it gets done further with like Chopper in Rebels, I swear there's lines where you go, I know what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. In that case, like, didn't Dave Filoni like actually say words?
Yes.
Yeah, like say swear words and stuff. I would love to know what Ben Burt originally was like. If he was actually saying things when he was recording, like making the sounds for Artoo, because he was processing his voice, I believe, but using also like it was kind of an amalgamation of a few different sound synthesis techniques and sources. But yeah, there is so much in Artoo's speech, but also I think like his personality comes through in the rapidity with which he answers people. Like his cockiness is almost, and his confidence is almost observable just by how quickly he retorts and chimes in, and you can tell that he's like spunky and outgoing even somehow. Yeah. Okay, I shall keep playing.
Get there. Are you seeing these Atmo readings? It's a mess out there. Magnetic cross fields.
Gravity wells, solar winds.
Rose gets one line.
One.
Artoo's bank must be crossed with his logic receptors. He says he is receiving a transmission from Master Luke.
That's an old craft ID.
So now the music's in.
It's transmitting course marker signals on its way to the unknown regions.
It's Ray.
Yeah. The music, just the part where, okay, let's go back to the transition where the music finally comes in and what it comes in on.
He says he is receiving a transmission from Master Luke.
That's an old craft ID. That's Luke Skywalker's X-Wing.
It's transmitting course marker signals on its way to the unknown regions.
It's Ray.
What do you make of that? Like, why does the music come in there?
It is that, okay, this is our next action piece, but that's a resistance theme or something, isn't it, that comes in there?
I feel like it's something related to it. It's a good question. Like, it feels extremely related. What here I've written it out for those who can read music. It certainly has it has the tempo of it. It has a lot of short notes. It has a lot of the markings of it. And it's the pitch collection it's alternating half steps and whole steps, which is a very common like collection of pitches in Star Wars. It's called it's called an octatonic scale, or it's octatonic in nature. It's not really using all of 8. It's not using 8 notes, but it seems like it's going in the direction of an octatonic scale. And it is also reminiscent of a theme called March on Board Spacecraft, which I'll play it. It's from the sequel trilogy, March on Board Spacecraft. Here we go.
Turn here. Listen carefully. If you do exactly.
So that's like when Finn and Poe are escaping the First Order in The Force Awakens.
Okay.
And I feel like it's probably also related to this other music that we're going to get in these sets of minutes, which is this set of minutes, which is the Exegol, like flying to Exegol. So I think what it is, mainly the function it's serving is it's sort of like a background active action ostinato. And an ostinato is just a repeated cell of music. So I think it's meant to do a similar thing that those other pieces of music do. And even like going back to the original trilogy, like like just like when they're running and it's vaguely in that world. Yeah. Yeah, it's action, but it's not like too in the way of other things. That's what it feels like to me.
Because you'd almost expect, if you're sitting here analysing it, which we are, with the mention of Luke, you'd expect some of Luke's music to come in then, almost. But that they've gone straight to, we're going to start building the action, that this is now, okay, we have something to do, or there's a plan coming into place with this.
Yes, I think that's a good point, because I think the music tells the audience that we're not going to linger on the fact that it's Luke's X-Wing, because we've already just had a scene with Luke. The audience doesn't need to share the like Luke revelation with Poe and everything, because we've already just done that with Rey. So it's telling the audience that what they're doing with this information is springing into a plan. It's a plan making music. It's not like, let's think about Luke music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plans are starting to formulate.
Yes.
Yes. Rose gets a line. Oh, yay.
Yeah. I wish there was more Rose in this film.
There should be more Rose, and it really is a big mark I have against the movie, that I get quite cross about Rose use or misuse or underuse. I feel she could have been used more. We see something in these group of minutes where she could have been used better. And I think part of that frustration comes to Charlie from Lost,
yes.
Beaumont.
Yes.
And his inclusion, when you think a lot of what he says could have been said by Rose, but it is what it is, right?
Right. It is what it is. And yeah, I mean, I like how they expanded Beaumont's character in Shadow of the Sith book, and I like the idea of him. I think he's cool, but that doesn't change the fact that if we could go back in time, and I would have liked there to be a justified reason for Rose to have a bigger part. Yeah. Okay, so I'll continue playing. Where I'm going to pick up, we're now getting to a shot of Rey flying.
She's going to Exegol. She's showing us how to...
So it's interesting that like we get a shot of Rey, but this is not really Rey's point of view. We're still in like Finn's dialogue here.
Yeah.
As if he's seeing, as if he is sensing what is going on with her.
Yeah. Or them projecting what she might be doing and seeing. But yes, a sense in the Force of what she's doing would be a great interpretation of that. And it's not often in Star Wars that we get that one character narrating what someone else is doing and seeing that someone else on the screen. I can't really think that off the top of my head of it happening. Cue the people screaming at their phones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is more in this movie. There's obviously more of that. There's like, like Luke explaining how he trained Leia. Then you see that. But yeah, whenever this comes up, like this structure of thing that happens on the podcast, which is like a guest goes, I think this is the first time this I don't think this has happened. in other movies very much. It always catches, it puts me on the spot because then I'm like, oh crap, I guess I don't necessarily remember either, but maybe I'm just wrong. And then it's just another thing to look out for the next time I watch them. There's a never-ending stream of those. Yeah. The bit of brass music that we hear when we switch to kind of spying on what Ray's doing, it's familiar to me.
She's going to Exegol. She's showing.
No, it's very soft. You can't really hear it, but it's like.
Yeah.
And then it goes from E minor to so it goes from E minor to B minor to F minor. So which is actually, each of those is a fifth apart. So it's doing minor chords going around the circle of fifths. What the other place that I heard this in this movie it was when after they land on Kef Bir and they're kind of walking up to the up that hill and they see the Death Star wreckage and they're like seeing it from the hill, and before Ray pulls out the blade, like that moment is the other place where I hear that, and I'll play it to remind listeners. Okay.
What is that?
It's the Death Star. It's a bad place.
Yeah. So it's not verbatim the same thing because it is shifted into a different key. But other than that, like it feels like the same thing. I think that's interesting.
So do we think that there's Exegol sort of hinting at on the way to a bad place or an evil place, or there's Sith horns almost?
Yeah, I think it is like going to a bad place. I think that's exactly it, probably. Yeah. It certainly doesn't sound good.
No.
Okay, so I will continue playing.
She's showing us how to get
Okay, I
there.
have to go back a little bit.
She's going to Exegol. She's showing us how to get there. Then we go together.
Little brief friendship theme. Very brief, and then we go together. And there is a track on the soundtrack called "We Go Together." It's not in this set of minutes, but Poe said the line, "We go together." That's the line. Which they've said before, I believe. And then Ray goes, or together. Oh, no, alone. Ray's, no, it's earlier when Ray's like, I need to go alone. And Finn's like, alone with friends or something. But anyway. Okay. So now we have a long stretch of music that I think is, like, listeners, okay, if ever there were a set of minutes where you could hear March of the Resistance a ton, you could hear all the different sections in it, this is it. We majorly have March of the Resistance, not just the A theme, which is the one we usually hear, but also B and C, and we'll talk about what those are. But yeah, we're getting into major Resistance inspiration and getting ready and everything. So let's jump into that.
Come on, buddy. We need you.
As long as those Star Destroyers are on Exegol, we can hit them.
Hit him how?
They can't activate their shields.
Is that in the background?
Which isn't easy on Exegol. Ships that size need help taking off. Nav can't tell which way's up out there.
So how do the ships take off?
They use a signal from a navigation tower like this one.
Except they won't. Air team's gonna...
It's just underscore. It's very soft, and there is like the low strings kind of pulsing the note, dong 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 dong, to kind of keep it driving forward, or at least keep it moving along at a predictable at a groove. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on March of the Resistance?
It's funny that it's very recognisable to me, but it hasn't caught on in the wider world, as it were. Like I work at a school and we have music playing before the bells in the morning, and sometimes they play like the Imperial March or Cantina Band. Yes, but I don't think that we'd get into like March of the Resistance. I don't think people go, Star Wars with March of the Resistance. But it is a very identifiable, and it is very sequel trilogy, but somehow it links back to the original, and I can't describe why. But it just it feels part of it. Like it is a different piece of music, but somehow it feels still part of the Star Wars language.
That's very good. Does it remind you of something? Does it feel related to another piece of music, a specific other piece of music? Like, what does it feel in the same family of?
I can't pick it now. I'm sorry.
Like for me, I would say the Trade Federation March from the prequels is what it reminds me the most of. And now that I have this in my head, I'm like, how does Trade Federation go? Which is ridiculous because I've played it so much. Wow, this is okay. Let me just think of the Droid March. Okay, let me just get into the mindset of like of the Phantom Menace. Okay, so it's like. Okay. Wow, what am I? There we go. Okay, I knew it was on. It was like on the tip of my head. Wow. Does it ring a bell?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not singing it particularly well, so I'm glad you recognize it. But March of the Resistance. Okay, so one thing tying these two things together, and also the Imperial March, is that they are marches. So there is like a rhythmic element and a steadiness of the pace, and sort of a predictability of the pace that is important for a march. If you think about their purpose, and so they have that in common. Also, they're all in a minor key, and I don't know. John Williams likes to do a lot of like kind of off the string, dun, dun, like kind of like a jump in your step type of, like staccato or things that are a little bit bouncy. And also, okay, the triplets, and I feel like this rhythm, which is like eighth note followed by 2/16, which is a value of half followed by two notes of a value of 1/16. So it's basically like the first one is double the length of both the second one. So it's like, and then just think of like there's just like that rhythm is all over Star Wars. So that is very much part of a lot of these marches. And I think just like maybe also the orchestration of it. I mean, John Williams does. I feel like he has a signature style. So it does make sense that even though these are from different movies that it sounds related. But yeah, listeners, feel free to let me know if you think there are other elements at play.
It's funny because John Williams has done all sorts of different scores and things. I've watched the recently released John Williams documentary on Disney Plus, and he's been involved in so many different movies, television shows. Like, it's just amazing the different things he has been involved with, like back to the Towering Inferno and things like that, and the difference in sounds with all of them. You know, like he must have learnt so much on all these different things, and all of these different perspectives somehow came together to make this amazing film composer.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Like I can't, I'm not saying words well, but to think Jaws and Star Wars, Superman, Close Encounters of the Third Kind were all in a very short period of time, and they all sound very different and unique. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for all of the, like, John Williams has done quite a variety of projects, and like some of his earlier work, you can hear how jazzy they are, like just like basically a jazz score. And then Heartbeeps is like just such a different score too. But then there are a few that I feel like will have crossover, like Harry Potter and Star Wars, or like Indiana Jones and Star Wars. So I feel like there's, like, he operates in a few different, he can travel across different regions, but then he might be in a region that is closer to another movie, farther from another one. But he kind of has this big map. I mean, his prolificness is something that is awe-inspiring to me. I can't imagine being that prolific and being able to just move forward after having created something really great, just to make something new and to trust that I'll have another thing that I'll come up with.
Yeah, to have that much inside himself, that he could just create so much, and it touching so many people, so many generations forever.
Yeah.
It is, there's no one comparable.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's unfathomable. And I think in terms of like 20th, 21st century composers, it's hard to think of someone who's had more impact than he has. It's a bold statement, but I feel like he is amongst the composers who have had the most impact. Of course, there's like Stravinsky and everything too, but but John Williams, there is a case to be made for John Williams occupying like that echelon, for sure.
Yeah, I think for many people, especially now, they don't have exposure to classical music, but they get exposed to movies, and so they hear John Williams, and that's their exposure to classical music. And I've been to a few of the Star Wars with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra screenings, and they are amazing. And there's lots of little kids there, and that would be their first experience of live classical orchestra, and it's amazing. It really is amazing to watch them be awe-inspired and tingled by the music, and you just wonder, well, what effect is that going to have on them in the future?
Yeah. Now I'm prompted to ask you, what is your familiarity with classical music, and was Star Wars kind of a gateway, or just tell me about that background.
my mum and dad didn't listen to a lot of music, but we did have a record player, just to age myself, and mum did have like the best of Mozart, the best of Beethoven, the best of, on LP. So we'd put them on and I'd dance around the room because I was, learning ballet. So I'd dance to that. Like that would be how I'd amuse myself for a few hours. Being a ballet dancer, I'd listen to music that way and experience it that way. So, that was, a big exposure. And I have this memory of when I was little, the Victorian State Opera would come to primary schools. I don't think they do this anymore, and do little performances. I'm positive they did this. So I know they did it. But
like performances of classical music or of like opera or
of like a children's opera type of thing, like Peter and the Wolf.
That's cool.
Like a cut down versions of it. So it's that type of thing. Like we may not have known who the composers were, but it was something we were exposed to. So it's something that, I was growing up in a house where, not a lot of popular music was played. We weren't listening to the Beatles or things like that. If anything was played, it was John Denver. I love John Denver. I still remember these, classical music, and throughout Mum's life she would have, classical music and those CDs like in her car and things like that. When she passed last year, I made sure to have some music of that in the ceremony.
Oh, that's really good. Did your parents introduce you to Star Wars?
No. I have an older brother and an older sister. So they were my gateway, especially my brother. Grew up with the movies taped off TV.
Nice.
Yes, on Betamax to further date myself. So we'd play Star Wars and at primary school again, I'd be wanting to play Star Wars, but the boys go, "Nah, you're a girl."
Oh God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're a girl. You got a lot of that in the 80s and 90s of you can't like Star Wars, you're a girl. Whatevs. But E.T., I think, was my first time going to the movies.
Oh, that's such a good one.
Yeah. So, yes, John Williams is in there. But I do remember now the Ewok Caravan of Courage.
Okay, that has really great music.
That was released cinematically around the world. What? So, yes. So I remember, and this was when we were visiting my mum's family up in far north Queensland, so a country town where they've got, it's a very old like town hall that's during the day that puts out seats and it's a cinema, and so you have like deck chairs like type of thing, and like canvas deck chairs, and that's where we watched Caravan of Courage.
Incredible.
And I think that was a very imprinting moment of my life.
Incredible. That's really great.
So yes, Caravan of Courage was my first Star Wars on the big screen.
That's amazing, and I don't think I've heard anyone else say that. great.
Yeah, it's something that has always been there, and I started reading the EU novels in the 90s when they came out, and I think one of my first paychecks from a part-time job went to buying the VHS box set. This is the last time it will ever be released. Yeah. Again, dating myself. And then seeing the special editions on the big screen. And yes, saving up to buy those on box set also. It's something that it has very much always been there. And when Disney bought Lucasfilm, it re-sparked, the interest everywhere, and I've sort of made all these friends in here in Melbourne and around the world through Star Wars. It's just amazing. And for those of you watching video, you can see I've got some posters there from the midnight premiere of the sequel trilogy. And they're amazing nights. So that's with the fan club, Star Walking, and just amazing nights of 12:01, boom, Lucasfilm logo.
That's so cool. I didn't get posters, but I don't know if we have that fan club here. Maybe we do. I don't know. That's quite an impressive wall behind you. It's
Yes. It's
oh yeah. Lots of collectibles.
I need more walls for the posters, and I need more shelves. No, it's not. I have too much. I need more walls.
Yeah. That's obviously the problem. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thanks for telling me about your Star Wars / classical music history. I feel like it's a good prerequisite knowledge for me to know about with guests. Yeah. So I will keep playing. We're still in March of the Resistance land, so we're jumping right back into there.
I'll find the tower, ground team's gonna blast it.
Ground team.
I have an idea for that.
Once the tower's down, the fleet will be stuck in Atmel for just minutes, with no shields and no way out.
We think hitting the cannons might ignite the main reactors.
That's our chance.
We need to put some hold-on maneuvers, do some real damage.
Come on, that move is one.
Okay, wait, we have to stop for a second. Here's the thing, the strategy meeting that's happening, I think it's so funny. Okay, I'll put images on screen to remind everyone what this looks like. So, there is a crowd of people, a big crowd of people watching, mostly listening. People mostly listening. I think it's hilarious that everyone is quiet and only exactly one person at a time speaks. I know that it's for movie clarity, and I'm glad we don't have to sit through a very realistically inefficient meeting where a few people start to talk at the same time, then it's like, oh, no, you go. But it's so in turn, it goes so everyone goes in turn that this moment feels to me it's a more obviously scripted moment.
Yeah. You think back to A New Hope when they had the briefing, and there was, chatter at times, or crosstalk, or private conversations happening. And if there were questions, they were called upon to talk. Yeah, it felt, yes, again, it's scripted, but it felt a bit more natural, whereas this is past the baton of talking.
Yeah, I didn't actually think about that distinction with it makes sense if everyone's just quiet and you're being called upon to talk, but the fact that no one is they're seeming to spontaneously know that it's their turn is maybe what takes me slightly out of it. It doesn't bother me. I think it's fine. but it does strike me as like just so unbelievable and also funny. Just because it goes on so long and we get so many close-ups, and there are maybe it's just because so many people have a very small line that's kind of insignificant, that's kind of less significant. Like they'll squash us like bugs or whatever. Like just the fact that there is space for someone to pipe up with just a little quip and they're the only one talking. Like I just feel, yeah.
And I'm
never happens.
still, I've watched this scene a few times now, and I'm still not entirely sure where they all are in terms of each other. Like I know where Finn, Poe and Rose are. You know, they're quite next to each other. Mm-hmm. But I'm really not sure where Beaumont or Lando are in the scene. You don't really get that establishing this is where everyone's located. Okay, now we're focusing on Beaumont. It's just it feels a bit disjointed in that.
Maybe that's contributing to it too, because you're right. There are a lot of just close-ups. I'll put some more images on screen. So this is Rose close-up, and then we get Lando close-up, and then we have Beaumont, and we do see that he is on his right is C-3PO, and on his left is Junior Aftab Akbar. I believe that's him. And then we see C9 Nub, but it's like a close-up. So we see that he's in, kind of a group of people, and then we get a close-up on Catal Connix. And again, we see people in the background, so we see that she's part of a group, but like we don't see all of these people like all together. So maybe that is also what makes it feel very much like it's the Zoom call, and it's just automatically highlighting who the speaker is. Yeah, just something very funny about that scene.
And bringing up the Holdo maneuvers, but this is where I get cross about the use of Rose, in that Finn and Poe are leading the meeting and they're talking, they're standing. Rose also, came up with the plan and is instrumental in the plan, but they have her off to the side and seated. I think even though she's not delivering many lines, it would have been powerful to see her standing next to Finn and Poe. It's a sense of authority, as being one of the leaders. And I think just that little change would have been good to see for Rose. It would have been beneficial to her character.
I think you're right. And because you're right, she is the one that says, we think hitting the cannons might ignite the main reactors. And Lando's like, that's our chance. I think the positioning of her was a missed opportunity.
And it's such a little change.
And also because she has like such an instrumental like thing to say, I feel like if this were like a real meeting and they were good leaders, no, I'm just kidding. They would have been like, yeah, come up here or something like, just so that they could help lend her that authority, like you said. But because this is movie magic and we're getting the close-ups on them, it's almost like the overall staging of it is deprioritized. And I do feel that I miss when I don't know if this is more of a thing in the sequels, but I feel like I miss some of what the context is spatially.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much close up.
Yeah, it gives a feeling, and I think it's something that we've become more aware of since 2020 and 2021 of, could they film this all separately? Mm-hmm. And it gives a bit of that, like were they on set on the same?
No, it does give that vibe. It totally does. Yeah, because when you see each of the like people who speak up, like their shots are kind of very similar. Like it's them in the foreground and then you have other people in the background. And it is, I mean, yeah, it's almost like they each had their own crowd. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the deal was. Like, maybe that's also not what happened, but it just looks like that.
Yeah, and it is something I think we're sort of conscious of seeing now, knowing a bit of how stuff has been filmed over the last few years, of filmed very separately. Mm-hmm. And I think we pick up on those things a bit more now, and it is something that you kind of look at and go, were they together? But I do think that Finn, Poe and Rose were together when they filmed, because she's visibly sort of seated and a bit behind them. Mm-hmm. And so I think having her standing next to them does give her a little bit more authority. You don't, not even saying more lines, which I wish she had, but I think it would help her character with that air of authority. You know, I think I wish, you know, in the opening scenes of the movie that she was on the Millennium Falcon instead of Claude. I know it's hilarious that Claude's on there as the engineer, but why not have Rose?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I think the part of the movie that guts me the most with Rose is when Rose is like, it's like, oh, I have to stay back. General Leia wants me to do some other stuff. And it's like,
yeah,
oh man, you have to stay home? Like, come on, you're our friend. Like that part, that sucks. Yeah. Anyway, where I have paused, we're about to get a different theme come in.
1 in a million.
Okay, so this is, I'll go back a little bit. This is after the Holdo thing.
We think hitting the cannons might ignite the main reactors.
That's our chance.
We need to put some Holdo maneuvers, do some real damage.
Come on, that move is 1 in a million. Fighters and freighters can take out their cannons if there are enough of us.
He's right. We'd be no more than bugs to them.
That's where Lando and Chewie come in. They'll take the Falcon to the core systems. Send out a call for help for anybody listening.
We've got friends out there. They'll come if they know there's hope. They will. First Order wins by making us think we're alone. We're not alone. Good people will...
Okay, that's an interesting transition there. But, okay, the more I listen to it, unfortunately, with you, the more awkward the, like, one line is to me.
I'm sorry.
No. It's, I mean, I brought it up and then we talked about it and then now it's just, every time I'm just like, oh my God. I think it's because like the length of their lines is not, there's not much variety. It's not like someone does the length. Okay, we're belaboring this point, but like, I need to know. I need to know if anyone listening also feels this way. It's like the mood, the spirit that the lines are delivered in feels similar, where they're each saying something in a similar way. That's our chance. We need to pull some Holdo maneuvers, do some real damage. Come on, that move is 1 in a million. You don't have someone doing like an outburst. You don't have someone going really quiet and kind of a different mood. You kind of are having like this very coordinated line read. And it's not the actor's fault. It's what the script is and how it's edited, I think.
Yeah.
She's right. We'd be no more than bugs to them. Like to translate what Nine Nub just said, which he's speaking and, you know, he's like, there aren't enough of us. One-lininess.
It is just boom, 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 like one line. I mean, I'm not helping myself in that at the moment I'm on this YouTube deep dive of watching clips of like West Wing and ER and even Law and Order. So I'm getting these like long chunks of dialogue and characters speaking a lot of lines, you know, a lot of lines in ER. But you're right, it's very rarely just that one line. And and everyone at the same tone, usually there'd be someone a bit grumpier or reluctant.
Yeah. Or someone comes in late and is going to do a whole thing. But, like, I don't know. Like, I will say that when I saw this movie in theaters, I am sure that this didn't bother me. And I'm sure I probably appreciated the efficiency of it. And I think taking a step back, it makes sense for the movie. And it's fine. Just doing it in this much detail is now, it is feeling much more awkward than it ever did in the past. Yeah. Again, it also works with the music. Like, the music is obviously trying to keep us moving here. This is not a place where the music is telling us to linger. It's really, we want the energy here to be doing a crescendo. And so the editing of this makes sense. But yeah. Listeners, let me know if there's other Star Wars movies where a similar thing happens, so I can just, like, either have those movies ruined. No, I'm just kidding. That would never ruin the movie for me. So I can just watch a variety of. So I could watch this happening in other occasions, and either, I don't know, discover more details that are different, or realize that I'm making too big of a deal of this. Okay. Going back a little bit. Where Finn is saying, that's where Lando and Chewie come in. They'll take the Falcon to the core systems. That's where we get the victory theme. Sorry, we've already been having the victory theme, but victory theme switches to a solo trumpet. Okay, we'll go back and listen to it right now. So this is after Finn says that movie's 1 in a million. We get the victory theme, which is...
Do some real damage.
Come on, that move is 1 in a million. Fighters and freighters can take out their cannons if there are enough.
Here we go.
He's right.
That's where Lando and Chewie come in. They'll take the Falcon to the core systems. Send out a call for help.
And then here we have it on solo trumpet.
They'll come if they know there's hope. They will. First Order wins by making us think we're alone. We're not alone. Good people will fight.
Music ramping up. It's very satisfying, I think.
And neither will we. We're gonna show them we're not a...
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, it's very rousing when the music, actually crescendos there. And there's some violin triplets. Pushes us into the next section of March of the Resistance. I'll put an image on screen of what's happening. It's the montage thingy that's beginning to happen.
I think I put in my own notes like the Independence Day speech. It gives me that kind of vibe.
Yeah, it does. On the episode that came out today, so this is 2 weeks before this episode is coming out. So with Pete and Alex from Star Wars Minute, I think it was Alex that mentions that he thinks there are too many inspirational speeches in the newer Star Wars, and I feel like I kind of agree. I feel like inspirational speeches are kind of usually not my favorite part of the film, to say the least. I think some of them work better than others. I think this one still works better than some other ones, but still, I also think it must be really hard to write those, to write something that gets the job done that you need to narratively, but also doesn't drag on or seem too awkward. I think the Rogue One inspirational speech is awkward, and some people don't feel that way, but I feel that way. Yeah.
But if it was delivered by Cassian, that would be a different story.
Well, that's because I think Cassian would... I think it's because now we know more about where he's come from. I think when Jyn gives the speech in Rogue One, I think she's still very opaque to us.
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah.
It's funny because, Andor, okay, everyone, if you were betting how long it would take me to mention Andor, there you go.
You made it almost an hour without a mention of Andor. Catherine's number one Andor obsessive. by the way.
I'm wearing my daughter's Ferrex t-shirt today. But Andor does have a few inspirational speeches. I'm thinking of, Kino Loy's One Way Out, but and even
that one works.
Rail's speech. Like somehow that's inspiring.
And Marva's, that works. Marva's so good.
Oh God, Marva. Yes. But yeah, they are examples of speeches that work without the cheese. Like I think a lot of movie inspirational speeches can have that little bit of cheese. I think that's why I've referenced Independence Day but actors can get past it and you go, oh yeah, that was pretty awesome. And I think you feel that rousing sentiment here. You do feel the build, and especially when you're in the cinema as that first time when it's just such a kinetic movie. It's just moving at a clip. You feel that rousing, and you're right, it's that starting again of the third act or the next really big action thing. This is what we're going to do. This is going to be our big last stand. And I think it does get us there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And I think movies, like things that have a big theatrical release, where a lot of you're tailoring it for the theater experience, I think there is a little bit more leeway in terms of putting a little bit more cheese on it, perhaps, especially if you have like some good sound happening, some good music happening. I think it's harder to get away with that on a TV show maybe, or something where viewers won't really be watching it in such a focused environment with such guaranteed good sound. So again, in the theaters, this worked for me. It was fine. It was good. Okay, so the March of the Resistance that we've been hearing up to this point has been, if you look at Frank Lehman's complete catalog of the musical themes of Star Wars, it is what he calls 47A, March of the Resistance, and it's the main, one that we all know, which is, that's a major version of it. Whoa, wow. Etc. Now, the part that we're getting into right now, it actually does the B theme, which I'll put it on screen. It's going to be, so what I'm going to put up is he has B through D all in one, but it's that top one that says B theme, and it's the one that goes do 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 do. Yeah, so it's the dun dun dun, and I'll play it from the minutes. It is all March of the Resistance, though. Here we go. Yep.
They had never gave up. And neither will we. We're gonna show them we're not afraid.
And that's back to the A.
What our mothers and fathers fought for, we will not let die.
Yeah, I like the B theme. I'm glad that we get to hear it here.
Yeah. It's a very rousing. That's the word I'd use to describe it. A rousing, piece of music. So it's the right place for it. Yeah,
I think it sounds like it reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean. And I've been trying to think of like what it. I think I've heard other people say that too. It feels very adventurous. It feels, I don't know. It feels piratey.
Yeah.
And it's a good contrast to the. It fits with the main, but it sort of feels more like a like another side of that. Like if I think like a lot of good themes have multiple parts to them, or different ways. Like Ray's theme has a bunch of different parts to it, and when it's like playing for such a long stretch of time, it is helpful when there are like other sections to it, so it's not just like looping the same melody over and over again.
I can't really add much, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's adventurous. You're right, it's that the Pyrex is a good comparison in that it sort of feels like a slightly ramshackled ragtag group coming together. Somehow it conveys that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to actually play a little bit from He's a Pirate. Yeah, so, I mean, they're both in D minor. They're actually not, I think harmonically there are a lot of similarities. There's like a very simple, like harmonic progression, I don't know, like they feel like they live in a similar world, though even listening here, He's a Pirate precedes, what year was this movie made? I don't know, 2001 or something. Like 20 years or something, like almost 20 years before Rise of Skywalker. I feel like this one is amped up already with so much percussion, and it sounds more music of foreshadowing the future of film scoring, whereas John Williams' score for even the Rise of Skywalker still feels like it's in an older style, like it's more of an older time, I think. And I think just here juxtaposing these two pieces of music that have a lot of similarities, but He's a Pirate is amped up with so much more. There's like extra sugar on top that makes it even more hyper palatable, I think. Like the drums, like the rousing drums are very very driving, like maximalist way. Like now, think of film scores, like there's so much of like the big cinematic, like synthesized drums are added to everything. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, yeah. I'll continue. Or unless you have something to add.
No.
Okay.
Continue. Not today. Today we make our last stand for the galaxy.
Okay, actually, this is March of the Resistance C theme. So I'm going to go back a little bit so we can lead into it.
We're not afraid.
What our mothers and fathers fought for, we will not let die. Not today. Today we make our last stand for the galaxy.
Yeah, so that little it's if you see on screen, it's 47C, connective motif. Okay, it's in the wrong key on this, so I'll just play it. It's like. Yeah, that's and then it repeats an octave up to amplify the intensity even more. I'll go back. Here we go. There we go. The connective motif.
For the galaxy.
And then we're back to the B theme.
For everyone we've lost.
They've taken enough of us. Now we...
I like that part as well. We have just the ding, ding, like incessantly just ding, like holding down the fort basically on that D. And then we have like... and then we just keep going up a half step basically. So we start with and then we go, and then we're just going up a scale, and it's paves the way for an exciting key change that happens.
Take the war to them.
Right there. A very bombastic tag at the end.
Yes, so we see them all rushing around, getting ready, and it is that very, yes, we're going to do it, we're going to get this done, and rush, boom into... It just keeps moving. Like, are we halfway through our 5 minutes? Like, and so much has happened.
Yeah. Yeah, we see, here are just a few screenshots. We see people hugging, we see sparks flying, we see Rose pushing on a lever of some sort to do something. We see traffic controller aliens. And then at the end, when we get the we're seeing the ships start to fly out and leave Agent Gloss. I think what makes this work is the music. Like, the music has to sell this whole inspirational montage. The music has to sell it, and luckily it does. I think, interestingly, like on the soundtrack, this music can be found on track 11, They Will Come, but it actually changes, like it diverts at a certain point. It doesn't, the end part of this isn't on the soundtrack. So what happens here is something that was probably had to be written later than when the soundtrack was finished. Yeah. Also, the editing thing that I wanted to mention was that here we have, they're giving a speech, so Finn and Poe are giving the inspirational speech, and then we see the montage, which is like them in the future getting ready, while we're still also hearing the speech. So we're hearing audio from both the speech, and we're also hearing audio from them getting ready at the same time, and then we cut back to the present speech. So we go in the future and then come back to the speech. But the speech does tie the whole thing together. And again, listeners, tell me if something like that has also happened in another Star Wars. Yeah,
because usually we hear the speech, then go to the montage. It just, in normal movies. But I suppose here, it keeps that momentum going, because this movie is nothing if not momentum.
Yeah.
It just keeps going. And but you're right, the music absolutely sells it. Without it, I think we'd notice more of the editing and the cutting between the lines, and we'd focus on and all of that. But the music absolutely has kept this one theme going, and we focus on that, and it works.
Mm-hmm. And this is one of those payoff moments where, because we've already had this theme introduced so much before in the sequel trilogy, now he can bring it in a moment where we want it to shortcut the audience's road to feeling inspired. Because we're recognizing it, we're feeling like, oh yeah, this is our hero's theme, and yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to move on, and we're going to get very different music. I mean, not really that different.
She's on approach.
All ships, rise to deployment altitude.
There's the klaxon. Yeah, gotta love a klaxon.
Oh, yeah. Klaxons, it's a classic. You can't have a Star Wars movie without it, I don't think. But you can hear the strings just sort of going wild. Like they're just really working. You can really feel them in there and hear them. And I'm just imagining, because that's the thing, seeing like the orchestras live, you can see how hard certain sections have to work during certain sections of the movie. And here I'm imagining the strings working hard.
Yeah. I've never seen a Star Wars live to picture. I hope to someday. Yeah, so the strings are here. This is the Journey to Exegol incidental motif. They're going. Okay. Do I have a note that low? Yes. Like they're probably playing really loud. They're probably playing forte, and they are just doing this incessant kind of angry, kind of furious, aggressive ostinato, as Frank Lehman describes it. He describes it as aggressive ostinato used for Kylo Ren's flight to Exegol and reused for Rey's similar journey later in TROS, possibly temp-tracked with ostinato from Revenge of the Sith, which itself appears to be a variant of Across the Stars. Okay, so it might be related to something from Revenge of the Sith, and what he's thinking is that it sounds similar to something from Revenge of the Sith, and so he's wondering, Frank Lehman, this is his open speculation, I think, of whether the movie was temp-tracked with a part from Revenge of the Sith. Are you familiar with temp tracking?
I've learnt about it through Star Wars that, yes, quite often they putting tracks of other things while they're editing to sort of get the feel of what they're wanting before the composers come in to do a final score.
Yes, precisely. So with Star Wars films, they tend to temp track them with John Williams's older Star Wars films. So
makes sense.
Right. So if John Williams heard, oh, they want something like that, then he could write a new one that sounds kind of similar, but it's a new one. Yeah. I'll also point out the sound design of Exegol is so screechy and so caustic and metallic and intense. I don't know that there are better words than that, but like,
and weird and off-putting.
Yes. Yes. This is true. It's
just very, just the sound of it. You go, oh, it
unnatural,
doesn't sit right? Yes, unnatural.
Yes, grating too. Like it's It sounds like, I don't know. It sounds very haunted.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Ooh, creepy.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to keep playing, and it's going to be loud. Okay, did you catch Rey's theme there?
No.
It was really buried in there, and it was superimposed on top of the Journey to Exegol theme. So I'm going to go back so you can catch that. Okay. It's in about 10 seconds. Here. Yeah, it went.
Okay.
It's like. Whatever. And it's like. Like in horns. It's really brief, but I like that it's there. Okay. Here. Yeah.
That's...
Yeah, they squeezed that in there. Ray's theme is very flexible, so I feel like it could fit into so many other themes, and so I like that it's being made use of, that they're making use of it in that way.
Yeah, to hint that she is there also. She is on her way, she's landing, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I believe we're getting, like, throughout this, we're getting, like, pride is there, yeah. You know, warning.
Pride's definitely there.
Pride is definitely there. We're seeing, like, this scary fleet.
Just a crazy number of ships.
Yes. And actually what's fun, and actually I feel like in this shot, it almost looks like we are underwater and seeing the bottom of, like, ships that are on the sea. They kind of look shaped like paper boats.
Yeah, they look like, cruisers you'd see on the water.
Yeah.
Just so many. I'm sure we saw this shot in a trailer or something, and I think I thought, oh, are they underwater?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you actually... Because it's something about the blue. And something about, like, this looks like the sun kind of...
Yeah, the sun above the water level.
Yep.
And, just heaps of ships in the water. You know, obviously when we have it paused, it's a bit easier to go, oh, okay, maybe not. But I think in the glimpse we'd see in trailers, it was like, oh, that looks like they're on water. That's cool. Star Destroyers in the water.
Yeah, that would be kind of a twist for Star Wars, to do something like, I don't know, to do like a naval battle, actually, like ships being ships on the water. I think it's also the darkness, because underwater it's very dark. You know, unless you are close enough to the surface where you can see the sun start to break through and lighten things up. And so I think it is something about being, like, I don't know, underneath. And I think it's the uniform height of these ships too, is doing that too.
Yes. They're all sitting on the water level.
Yeah. It really does look like that.
So many ships.
It's so many.
So many ships. Mm-hmm. I was just trying to think, well, how... I know that the Empire, or, you know, First Order doesn't really care, but really, how many planets did they strip of all of their metals and minerals and everything to build all of those? Yeah.
It's a valid thing to think about.
It's a lot of stuff that they need to make these ships, and usually that's, you know, a restriction on making lots of, you know, I'm thinking real world now, like planes and ships and all of that. There's limits on really how much they can make because of their access to materials and just also labour to build these things. I suppose, you know, there are no labour laws in in the Empire, but still there's got to be some, you know, restrictions or limitations. But I suppose it is giving the message of, that there are no limits. We have limitless resources.
Yeah, I mean, in order to have a fleet like the First Order, or, you know, honestly, like, in order to have the weaponry of the Empire, even, you can't, the only way you can do that is unethically.
Yeah. Don't think too hard, Catherine.
Yeah, I know, same. No, same. Same. But, like, also, but also that look, Andor would have us thinking about this, and it does.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I think there is plenty of Star Wars media, particularly in like books, I think even in some shows that are starting to delve in more into that as well, kind of more explicitly. Very unethical and probably not environmentally friendly. I also wonder, like, they also have to have so many people to crew these things, and so I'm actually curious, like, to what extent have each of the people serving in the first or the Final Order army, how much have they drunk the Kool-Aid? Are they believers, or are they very just like doing it because they don't feel like they have any other option? Like, what's their loyalty like?
This is the thing that I wish the sequel trilogy had examined more, because it made clear that the stormtroopers at least were child soldiers. They had been kidnapped and brainwashed into joining the First Order. And I think a lot of the serving officers were those sort of brainwashed type of, or conditioned at least.
Yeah.
But there were people in there who were true believers, like
General
Pride himself. Yeah, he was an Imperial officer and then moved over to First Order or Final Order. Hux is a second-generation Imperial First Order officer. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, there would have been true believers in there. Mm-hmm. But there were, people who were just forced into it. And Finn and Yana are examples of that. And that is something I wish we would have seen more of, like Finn and Yana perhaps leading, a rebellion of stormtroopers.
Well, we know from Jenna's story that it was not just her; it was like their whole battalion that did it too. Yeah. So then now I'm thinking, like, could this also happen at other ranks, at other like echelons of the First Order? Probably.
Yeah.
And like, is it like a Wizard of Oz situation? Like, once the witch is dead, all her lackeys are kind of like, oh, thank God. Okay, we don't have to do that anymore.
I think for a lot of them, it's like, oh yeah, thank you for saving us. We were all tricked into it. We didn't agree with the policies at all.
Oh, because that would be like smart. Because they would be like, okay, now I need to make sure that I'm ingratiating myself to whatever the new thing is. And yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Again,
and I think we see some of that, after the fall of the Empire. Like, even Mandalorian sort of hinted at it, that they're trying to re-educate a lot of the Imperial officers and people, but it was just such a big task that they couldn't really do it, properly. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people were getting by with just the face value. Oh no, I don't support the Empire at all. New Republic all the way. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure there's always going to be those people who just pay lip service to the convenient power structure.
Yeah, totally. And any sort of governmental, like, huge shift in how things are run in the galaxy, is going to provoke an unrest, even if people, conceptually want to be on board. It's going to be hard to extricate yourself from, if you've already gotten used to one system and have maybe found some success in it even. Now I need to stop overthinking this. Okay. Klaxons, yes. Okay. We just had Ray's theme come in, and now the music is going to briefly find some respite. Okay. Okay, it's very soft, but the violins are going. And it's like, it's very slow. It actually sounds kind of like an alarm when I play it. But yeah, it's like the music doesn't quite cut out because we have that. And we still have it while the Emperor's theme comes in. It's hard to hear. So we're on the surface of Exegol, and Rey is walking toward the Sith Citadel. There's something very uncanny when something very high-pitched, like that little violin thing, is juxtaposed with something very low. And when the Emperor is portrayed on screen, or like there's other like evil stuff happening, John Williams uses this a lot, where he'll have something very low with something very high, and it feels uncanny.
Yeah. When you're playing it on the violin, it sounded like a eeyore, like an ambulance, so a very siren-y sound, sort of continuing the klaxon wailing, even in that music. And then we get to those very low voices, unsettling of Exegol.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put some images on screen.
Growing up on Exegol must mess with a person.
Oh my gosh! It's like talk about seasonal affective disorder.
Oh.
So she's parked the ship, and then like this intense, like for scale, we're seeing like this massive structure. This I feel like looks like, what is it? I think it reminds me of like the Alien poster.
Oh yeah.
Or like, what am I thinking of? Like a shot from Alien, maybe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I know what you mean. There's that blue line on the horizon.
Yep.
It's very alien, or it very much evokes something in the distance, something unsettling.
Yeah. Also evokes World Between Worlds.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So then we are getting the Emperor's theme, and I'll keep playing.
I know it's a rough ride.
Okay. Now we're back with Poe, and the Resistance fleet is flying through red stuff. What's the red stuff? Toward Exegol. I don't actually know what the red stuff is.
Like I'm sure that they
cosmic
said it,
matter.
It's atmosphere. Red stuff's good enough.
Thank you.
Like,
I feel like there's a name for it, but sorry. Yeah.
It'd be like plasma discharge and all of that in Star Trek.
Yeah.
But this is Star Wars, so red stuff.
Yeah, okay, great. And I just want to call attention to the timpani. That's like the timpani roll. The timpani roll is what transitions us from Rey walking toward the Sith Citadel, like slow Emperor theme. The timpani roll transitions us back to the other action. So it kind of like dumps us out there like a chute. And timpani.
I know it's a rough ride. Stay locked on Rey's course.
We're softly hearing March of the Resistance in the background.
Captain, we have Resistance craft incoming.
Allegiant General.
Use ion cannons.
Yeah, and at the end, we were just starting to hear the beginning of the Emperor's theme again, played really fast. But that's the end of the minutes. We're really in some fast action now. Now we're in some deep, troubling trouble.
Yeah, and I'm getting to hear the talking over the intercom. There's Resistance fighters on the way. Just that they don't have that crisp sound. You can immediately hear that person's not in the room. They're sending their voice over something else, and charging up ion cannons, and you can hear all these Star Wars sounds just layer upon layer upon layer, but you can almost distinguish each and every one.
Do you have any favorite Star Wars sounds? Or ones from this movie, or anything?
I mean, the ignition of a lightsaber is so iconic and, yeah, evokes so many different moments when that has happened. Droid sounds are just so unique to Star Wars. But I think, the just even the whir of the engines, like in like Millennium Falcon and even the Sand Speeder, like how it just starts up and has its own sound. It doesn't sound quite like what we have on Earth, but it's not so different that you don't understand what it is. And I think that's really the genius of what Ben Burtt did with sound, especially in A New Hope, is that all of this is new. We don't know what any of these things are, but somehow the sound grounds us and we understand a bit of it. And you think back to things like the pod race scene where all of those pod races have a different engine sound.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. So that was a very long answer. I don't think you got one.
Are you a fan of like movies that have a lot of like fast cars and stuff?
Not generally, no.
Me neither.
I think, yeah. But
I also really appreciate all the fun not car sounds in Star Wars. The speeders and the pod racers and everything. And I'm trying to figure out what's like different about them. Because I almost like, I'm not only do I not really like, I'm not really that into car chase movies or like,
no.
I actively dislike them, I think. Like
no, I've never Fast and Furious. Sort of the most I get now is, Mission Impossible movies, but they're always different, like motorcycles and cars and little cars, big cars, different things. But I think in Star Wars, in that pod race scene in particular, you could hear some like chug, 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 and some smoother and some, struggling along and they're almost given personalities. Like the Millennium Falcon, at times I'm turning the key of the engine.
Yeah.
And you can almost hear that, that start up. It's like there's different car models almost have a different sound when they start up. And there's some sounds where I go, oh, that sounds like, the Toyota we had growing up. And I turn and sometimes it is a Toyota. I go, yeah, picked it. But it's like, they have a distinctive sound. And I think, our cat, when we were growing up, she would almost know when it was our car coming. Like she could pick the car.
Interesting.
By sound and know it was us. And, sometimes you can sort of it's funny that sound can have a personality, but a difference between things that on the surface are the same, but somehow you can hear something. And all those engine sounds that Ben Burtt has given so many different things. Like you think of the scream of the TIE fighters in A New Hope. Like he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to give them that sound, but he did, and it was so effective. And then, yes, in Andor, how it was made.
Are you just holding that like continuously?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
It's a Cassian.
He travels with me.
Yeah. Okay.
I always have a Cassian to hand. In Andor, how that scene in the valley when the TIE fighters scream over them and bring that terror. It's an amazing sound, and we think all these years later, it's still so effective.
Yeah, indeed. And there are lots of TIE fighters in this movie too. And they made new sounds for the TIE fighters, but they used Ben Burtt's original formula, which is like an elephant scream, an elephant with tires, screeching tires, but they use like different tires or the different elephants or like different animals that sound kind of like they're still using the same basic recipe. And I like that it's like almost reproducible in that way.
There's a lot of sounds in this sort of short burst, and I think the music is still there, but it's competing with all that other music, all that other sound, and the music is sort of, there's the first order element, and then there's the resistance element coming in, and then there's all that. There's just a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is a lot. There is a lot. That's for sure. Is there anything else about these minutes that you didn't get a chance to talk about? Anything else in your notes?
I think I've pretty much hit it all. Yes,
nice.
Yes. I've also said a lot.
I find it like sometimes people are like, I don't know how we're going to talk for so long about 5 minutes. And then it's like, turns out there's actually so much to talk about. Every time, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to review the themes from this set of minutes. We heard the Friendship, March of the Resistance A section, B section, and the C connective motif. We hear the Victory theme. We hear Journey to Exegol, incidental motif, Raise a theme phrase, and Emperor. And if you're following along on the soundtrack, you can find some of this music on track 11, They Will Come. And then Catherine, this is your first time on the show, so it's your first time answering the Star Wars Music Minute questionnaire. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Question number 1 is, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
All right. I sort of struggled with this, but I think I came up with emotions, timeless, and magic.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite get it, but I think that sort of covers it because the music just covers so many emotions and makes you feel many different things, and it's timeless because it can be from any time. It hasn't dated at all, and it is magic. You can be anywhere in the world and hear a piece of Star Wars music and everyone knows what it is and you're transported.
Mm-hmm. I can't argue with any of those words. Yeah. Question number 2 is, what is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about?
I'm really fascinated by what, the orchestra who first recorded it thought of the score. That they didn't know what Star Wars was. They didn't know what the music was. What did they think when they first, saw the music in front of them and was playing it, rehearsing? What did they think?
Oh my gosh. I really wondered that too. And actually I was talking to someone about this just a few days ago because I had like an orchestra concert. And so my stand partner was, we ended up talking a lot about Star Wars. And he was like, have you ever been on a John Williams session? And I was like, no. And he hasn't either. It's like hard to get on the sessions for John Williams music. Everyone all the musicians want to do that. So we were talking about like how hard his music is. And he was like, at least now we know what like Star Wars sounds like. So when we play it, like we know what it's supposed to sound like, but I can't even, he was saying, I can't even imagine being the London Symphony seeing the music for the first time. And it's so difficult and you're sight reading it for the first time. I'm so curious what they thought of the score too. Not only like just the difficulty of it, but like, what did they think it sounded like? Like, what did they like it? Were they like impressed? Were they? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because famously on the set of A New Hope, if the crew didn't think much of the film, or they're like, oh, this is some silly sci-fi thing. But yeah, the music is so amazing. Did the orchestra, what did they think of it? And obviously John Williams had already done some things up till then, but did they know? I mean, he re-recorded the Fox intro, that dun 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 bum. Sorry, everyone, I'm completely out of tune, but you can't not finish it.
It's true.
And yeah, when you go to a live recording, a live film orchestra, they do that, and it's amazing. I know it's funny to think
it is kind of part of it, because John Williams did write the main theme on purpose to be an extension of the Fox fanfare. It starts in the same key and everything.
It's genius. It's crazy. It's yeah. How did he think to do that? Like, why? But it just somehow lifts the epicness of everything. You get that fanfare and then that moment of silence.
And then the blasting first chord. Trumpets. Yeah. Oh, it's such a good moment. That's like the part
Tingles.
Everyone claps in the theater.
I start crying.
Yeah. So what did the orchestra who first recorded Star Wars think of the score? That's a good answer. And finally, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
I thought of The Commitments from 1991.
I've never heard of this. What is it, a film?
So, yeah, it's a film. So it's set in Dublin. So these group of Irish, like, teenagers and young 20s, they form a soul cover band. So the soundtrack's filled with all these soul classics.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's a really good film, but the soundtrack is amazing. Like, just these amazing singers. Like the guy they found, Andrew Strong, I think he was like 16, 17 at the time, but his voice is just amazing. Like, what he brings to it is just, all of these depths, and he can, do these slow bits, do these, it's just amazing what he did. And I think one of the, because most of the people in the film were just, musicians that the director brought together. And one of them, the guitarist, I think went on to make that movie a few years ago now. Is it Once? About the buskers or something who come together to write something. So, yeah, that was one of the guitarists in the band. That was him, in The Commitments. So, yeah.
I'm looking it up, and it looks like it is an American film. Is that true?
Yeah, but it's set in Dublin, Ireland.
But it's set in Dublin. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
it could have been produced.
Okay. So I'm also seeing that it like charted the soundtrack did really well in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm curious. Okay, listeners, tell me, have you heard of this movie? Are you familiar with the soundtrack, The Commitments? And then are you in Australia? Did you grow up in Australia? Now, I'm curious. Cool.
Yeah, so Australia loves sort of a lot of these soundtrack stuff, like there was a period of time there, I mean, The Commitments was big, and then Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, that soundtrack just, hit. Baz Luhrmann with Strictly Ballroom, that as well. Just Australia does love sort of kitsch sort of stuff, but The Commitments is, it really got there.
That's awesome. And now I'm gonna ask my family if they've heard of it. My Australian family, I'm sure they have. So, Catherine, where can people find you and your work online? I know you do have a podcast.
That I don't record anywhere near enough. So I'm at That Geek Pod. That's my own podcast, but I do guest a lot on my friend's podcast, Star Wars Spelt Out. So he has guests on quite a lot, but I'm on there regularly when there's a show on. So you can go back and listen to me being very emotional about every Andor episode. I'm on all the socials at Catherine_Kneen, and every day we are one day closer to Andor.
Yes, and she does tweet about it every day.
Every day, every night, sort of that's part of my nighttime getting ready to go to sleep is we're one day closer to Andor.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait myself. Yeah.
Gosh.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today. It was really fun.
Thank you for having me on.
And I hope we can do it again sometime soon or see each other in person. That would be cool.
Yes.
Listeners, I'll be back next week to talk about minutes 101 through 105 of The Rise of Skywalker. Links will be in the show notes for how to find Star Wars Music Minute online. You can join Discord server. You can support on Patreon. You can find me on most of the social medias. At Star Wars Museman, Star Wars Music Minute, or Chrysanthi Tan. And with that, I'll see you next week, and may the Force be with you.